All right, so here was my idea. At 3 a.m. in the morning, I actually found my first watercolor palette, and the paints are all dried out and they basically don't work anymore. So I was thinking, nostalgia-wise, what if I put my new paints that I absolutely love inside of my very first watercolor palette? And so I had this idea of what if I soak them overnight and tried to get all of these little pans out and then tried to put my new paints inside of it. That's the first step that I've started doing, and come along with me and let's see if this was stupidity or genius, because I might have just wrecked my first palette. Okay, so the very first thing that I want to do is just basically take these little guys and try and get all of the remains out, which it's coming out pretty well. So let's go ahead and do this. So that took about an hour, and here is where we're at. It took a while to get the glue out of the bottom, but I pretty much got it all out. So we are ready to start putting paints in once this dries. I want to make sure it's dried thoroughly. So I might continue with this project tomorrow to make sure that it's thoroughly dry. So I will see you tomorrow. It'll be a couple seconds for you, but for me, it'll be tomorrow. It is a couple of days later. I actually got tied up in a couple of other projects, so it is definitely a couple of days later, but here's what we have so far. The palette is completely empty as well as completely dry. There are some colors that stain the plastic, but I'm not worried about those. I tried to get them up with water. They will not come up, so they're not going to contaminate my current colors I'm going to be putting into this today. So here's my objective for this today. I want to fill this palette with tube paints, and there might be a couple of problems with that. First off, this is a very narrow palette. So one obstacle I know I'm gonna have to go against is making sure the mounds, like when you squeeze a tube of watercolor, it kind of mounds up. Some colors don't do that, but some colors do. Especially I feel like the thicker paints, they tend to mound up. I gotta figure out a way to squash them in and fill the entire little well in here. That's one thing that I gotta figure out. And another thing that I need to figure out is my core set of colors is about 24 colors, and this has 32 wells. So I was thinking actually about this for the past couple of days, if I was just gonna repeat some of those colors or choose other colors that I've used over the years that I like, but they're not necessarily in my core set. And I basically came up with the idea of filling all the tubes, 32 colors, different colors, into this set. So that's what I'm gonna do. Now, all of these colors I really like, I've used them, but I don't necessarily have them in my core set because I don't need them per se. They're nice to kind of pull out every once in a while, but I don't use them all the time, as well as I can mix most of these colors with the current colors that I have. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into this. I'm gonna fill this palette and also figure out how to make these paints flat. So let's begin. So these colors are the colors that I have chosen to put inside of here. And if you want to know what colors they are, I'll put them on my blog, basically. But I have segmented them aside as well as come up with a formula of how I want them laid out. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. And this is the final product. So I got all my paints in, they're still wet, so I don't want to like tip it or anything like that, but I'm gonna let them dry overnight. And I really hope you enjoyed this. I pretty much destroyed this palette and then reused it with a whole new purpose. And I've noticed recently I've been doing that a lot more in the state that the world is in. I've been trying to think of ways to reuse products in our house in creative forms and stuff like that. So this was one of the things. I knew I wasn't using it, even though it definitely had nostalgia value to me, but I wanted to start using it again and playing around with it. And I knew that the paints in it they were falling apart. They just weren't that great. And so why not try and repurpose it and reuse it with my new colors? So that was today's adventure. I really hope you enjoyed this and I hope you had fun. I know I did. So probably in the next episode, I'll be using this to paint with, so you'll be able to see how I use it. But I think that's it for today. Happy painting, y'all, and have a wonderful weekend. Lots of love. Bye.